In a world riven by political strife, cultural polarization, and a creeping loss of faith in institutions, a man emerged from the Southern Hemisphere whose quiet resolve and radical humility would reshape the global face of the Catholic Church. Jorge Mario Bergoglio, who would become Pope Francis, is not a figure born of Vatican intrigue or noble pedigree. He was born in a modest neighborhood in Buenos Aires, Argentina, a son of immigrants, raised among the working poor, and shaped more by tango and street wisdom than incense and marble corridors. Yet his journey would lead him to the throne of St. Peter, not through ambition, but through an unwavering dedication to service, simplicity, and the marginalized. From the moment he stepped onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica on March 13, 2013, and uttered the words, Fratelli e sorelle, buonasera, brothers and sisters, good evening, the world sensed something had changed. He wore no red mozzetta or golden cross. Instead, he greeted the faithful with a gentle smile and a bow, signaling a papacy of reform, inclusion, and mercy. Pope Francis would soon become the most unconventional pope in modern history, a spiritual leader who washed the feet of prisoners, lived in a guest house instead of the apostolic palace, and drove a modest Ford Focus around Vatican City. But to understand Pope Francis is to understand a life woven with contradictions, challenges, and transformation. He is a man of great spiritual discipline, a Jesuit who once governed with an iron fist yet emerged as a voice of compassion and reform. He is a theologian of orthodoxy who challenges tradition, a pope who carries the weight of ancient doctrine, yet opens doors to modern dialogue. His life is not simply a story of faith, but of humanity, marked by personal mistakes, profound revelations, and a relentless pursuit of justice and humility. We delve into his upbringing, spiritual evolution, pastoral work, and the seismic shifts he has brought to the Church's global mission. It is a story of complexity and conviction, of controversy and courage, of a man who believes that the Church must be a field hospital after battle, not a fortress of privilege. Pope Francis has walked with refugees, spoken against tyrants, embraced the sick and outcast, and confronted the shadows within the Church itself. He has faced criticism and praise with the same serene smile. Through it all, he remains a symbol of faith and action, a leader whose strength lies not in power but in humility. Jorge Mario Bergoglio was born on December 17, 1936, in the Flores neighborhood of Buenos Aires, Argentina. His father, Mario José Bergoglio, was a railway worker, and his mother, Regina Maria Sivori, a dedicated homemaker. Both were Italian immigrants who had fled the rise of fascism under Mussolini, bringing with them a strong work ethic, deep Catholic roots, and a spirit of resilience. The family lived simply but with purpose, immersed in a world of faith, modest means, and strong communal ties. Jorge was the eldest of 5 children, and from an early age he showed an inquisitive mind and a quiet strength. Unlike the polished, upper-class elite that often filled the corridors of ecclesiastical power, Jorge's world was filled with factory workers, meat vendors, and the smells of the nearby port. He grew up watching the dignity of labor, the strength of family, and the warmth of shared meals. Even as a boy, he was not particularly athletic or flashy. Instead, he found joy in reading, science, and helping his mother with household chores. He was especially close to his grandmother Rosa, a figure who would leave a deep spiritual imprint on him. Rosa often told him stories of the saints, instilling a sense of moral responsibility and an understanding of suffering as redemptive. She taught him to pray in Italian, to respect the poor, and to never seek more than what was needed. At the age of 21, Jorge's life changed forever. After recovering from a severe illness that required part of his lung to be removed, he felt a deep spiritual calling. While many young men at that time might have considered politics, business, or family life, Jorge turned inward. He joined the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, an order known for its intellectual rigor, missionary zeal, and fierce loyalty to the Pope. It was not an easy choice. Jesuits lived with a strict vow of poverty, chastity, and obedience, but for Jorge, it felt like a natural evolution, a deeper way to live out his commitment to justice, truth, and service. His Jesuit training would take him across Argentina and beyond. He studied chemistry before fully diving into theology and philosophy. But his education wasn't limited to books. He spent time in the Villas Miseria, the slums of Buenos Aires, ministering to the poorest of the poor. It was there, among those discarded by society, that he discovered the essence of his faith, not lofty doctrines or opulent cathedrals, but the face of Christ in the forgotten. During the military dictatorship in Argentina, from 1976 to 1983, Bergoglio served as the provincial superior of the Jesuits. It was a time of terror, repression, and fear. Thousands were disappeared by the regime. Bergoglio's role during this period would later become a subject of fierce debate. Some accused him of not doing enough to protect leftist priests, while others hailed him as a quiet hero who worked behind the scenes to save lives. The truth, as with many things in his life, is complex. What is clear is that these dark years would haunt him and shape his later emphasis on transparency, peace, and reconciliation. In the years that followed, Bergoglio grew in spiritual depth and leadership. He avoided the spotlight, often taking on humble assignments. He cooked his own meals, rode public buses, and chose to live in modest quarters. Yet his pastoral work and theological insight did not go unnoticed. In 1992, he was named Auxiliary Bishop of Buenos Aires, and by 1998 he became the Archbishop. Even in that role, he kept his old habits, walking the streets to talk with parishioners, visiting hospitals, advocating for the homeless, and confronting corruption head-on. He chose not to live in the ornate bishop's palace, instead moving into a small apartment where he cooked his own food and handled his own laundry. When he was elevated to cardinal by Pope John Paul II in 2001, he refused to wear the expensive robes and gold rings that many cardinals favored. At a banquet after the consistory, he reportedly told his Argentine companions not to waste money flying to Rome to celebrate him. He asked instead that they give the money to the poor. This act of quiet defiance became emblematic of his style, principled, humble, and unwavering in his mission to serve the last and least. Even as he rose through the ranks of the Church, Bergoglio remained somewhat of an enigma to the Vatican establishment. He was neither a liberal firebrand nor a hardline conservative. He was a man of prayer, simplicity, and immense empathy. In a church often accused of being aloof or bureaucratic, he offered something refreshingly different: authenticity. By the time Pope Benedict XVI made the unprecedented decision to resign in February 2013, the Catholic Church was in crisis. Scandals of abuse and corruption had eroded public trust, and the Vatican bureaucracy had become mired in intrigue and dysfunction. The world needed a shepherd, not a monarch. The cardinals gathered in conclave, looking for someone who could bridge divides, cleanse the institution, and reconnect the Church with its roots and service. When white smoke rose from the Sistine Chapel on March 13, 2013, many were surprised when the name Franciscus was announced. The new pope had chosen the name Francis, not after a previous pope, but after Saint Francis of Assisi, the patron saint of the poor, the environment, and peace. In that choice he had already spoken volumes. And so, Jorge Mario Bergoglio stepped out onto the world stage not as a ruler but as a humble servant. What would follow was nothing short of a revolution, not of doctrine but of tone, compassion, and radical love. Pope Francis's first public appearance as pontiff was nothing short of revolutionary. When he stepped onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica on the evening of March 13, 2013, his demeanor immediately set the tone for his papacy. Rather than donning the traditional papal robes, he wore a simple white cassock and did not immediately bless the crowds. Instead, he humbly asked for the faithful's prayers, kneeling before them. This seemingly small act was an early indication that his papacy would be radically different from those before him. In the days that followed, Pope Francis's actions spoke louder than words. He declined to live in the Apostolic Palace, choosing instead to reside in the Vatican guest house, the Domus Sancti Marti, a simple residence for clergy. He refused to wear the ornate red papal shoes, opting instead for black leather shoes symbolizing his focus on humility. Even his choice of a papal coat of arms was non-traditional, omitting the papal tiara and including instead a simple cross and the initials IHS, the monogram for Jesus. These early gestures sent a powerful message. Pope Francis was not here to wield the trappings of power but to serve the people. One of the first major decisions he made was to reach out to the city's homeless and the marginalized. On Holy Thursday, a few weeks after his election, Pope Francis made headlines by washing and kissing the feet of 12 prisoners, 2 of whom were women and 1 a Muslim. This was an unprecedented act for a pope, symbolizing his commitment to humility and his desire to challenge the Church's hierarchy and exclusionary practices. This focus on the poor, marginalized, and those on the periphery of society would remain a defining feature of his papacy. Despite his many reforms and acts of humility, Pope Francis has also faced significant challenges. The global sex abuse crisis, which has plagued the Church for decades, reached its zenith during his papacy. In response, Pope Francis took decisive steps to address the scandal, even though his actions have been met with mixed reactions.
He created a special commission to investigate abuse, implementing strong policies in reality, and held numerous meetings with violence. He also acknowledged the Church's deep complicity in covering up abuse and made efforts to hold accountable those who had perpetrated or enabled the crimes. However, many have criticized him for not doing enough to dismantle the culture of secrecy into the pace at which reforms were implemented. At the heart of Pope Francis's theology is a call to return to the Church's foundational mission, to serve the marginalized and to be a voice for the voiceless. His papacy emphasized mercy over judgment, inclusion over exclusion, and dialogue over division. This vision was encapsulated in the landmark encyclical Laudato Si, which addressed the moral and spiritual dimensions of environmental degradation. He argued that care for our common homes is an essential aspect of Christian discipleship, urging global leaders and individuals alike to take responsibility for the planet's well-being. In addition to its environmental advocacy, Pope Francis undertook significant reform within the Vatican. He sought to address the Church's internal challenges, including financial transparency and clerical sexual abuse. His efforts aimed at revitalizing the Church's role, ensuring that it remained a beacon of hope and integrity in the world. Perhaps the most enduring aspect of Pope Francis's papacy was his embodiment of compassion and humility. He lived simply, often choosing modest accommodations and modes of transportation. His actions spoke louder than words, as he consistently reached out to the poor, the sick, and the marginalized. His papacy was a testament to the power of love and service in transforming the world. One of Pope Francis's most significant theological contributions has been his emphasis on accompaniment, the idea that the Church must walk alongside people in their struggles, offering compassion, understanding, and support. This concept of accompaniment has shaped his approach to many of the Church's most controversial issues, including divorce, remarriage, and the LGBTQ+ community. In his many travels to countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, Pope Francis met with war, refugee fleeing violence, and indigenous people whose lands were threatened by development projects. Visits to these regions were not just symbolic, but marked by concrete actions. He called for an end to the arms trade, for greater protections for refugees, and for the recognition of the rights of indigenous peoples to their land and resources. Pope Francis was also a vocal critic of global economic systems that perpetuate inequality and environmental destruction. His critique of capitalism was sharp and unapologetic, particularly in his 2015 encyclical Laudato Si, where he described the global economic system as, well, inequitable and unsustainable. He denounced the exploitation of natural resources for profit, urging wealthier nations to take responsibility for the damage caused to the environment, while also calling for more equitable distribution of wealth and resources. Pope Francis, the 266th Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, passed away on April 21, 2025, at the age of 88. His death, resulting from a stroke that led to a coma and irreversible heart failure,
really marks the end of an era for both the Catholic Church and, well, the world at large.
The Vatican confirmed his passing at 7:35 a.m. Central European Summer Time. That's 1:35 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, leaving behind a legacy of compassion, humility, and reform. Pope Francis's health had been a concern in recent years, with several hospitalizations. In early 2025, he was admitted to Gemelli Hospital in Rome for treatment of severe respiratory infections and double pneumonia. His recovery was slow but steady, and after spending 5 weeks in the hospital, he returned to the Vatican in late March. Despite his recovery, his condition remained fragile, culminating in his final days, marked by a sudden stroke. On April 20th, just a day before his death, Pope Francis made a final public appearance to deliver the Urbi et Orbi blessing during Easter Mass in St. Peter's Square. In line with his lifelong desire for simplicity and humility, Pope Francis will be buried in a simple wooden coffin lined with zinc, foregoing the traditional raised platform for public viewing. His funeral will take place within the next few days, likely between 4 and 6 days after his death, and it will occur outside the Vatican. In an unprecedented move, he will be interred in the Basilica of St. Mary Major in Rome, the first pope to be buried outside the Vatican since 1903. Funeral arrangements reflect the pope's personal wishes, to be remembered not for grandeur, but for his service to the poor and his efforts to bridge divides within the church and the global community. Pope Francis, born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires, Argentina, in 1936, became the first Latin American pontiff in history when he was elected in 2013. Throughout his papacy, he was renowned for his progressive views on social issues. His focus on poverty, climate change, and the plight of refugees resonated deeply with the world's most vulnerable populations. He was widely praised for his approachability, often reaching out to people of all faiths and walks of life. Pope Francis was known as the People's Pope due to his deep connection with the ordinary people of the world, always emphasizing the importance of love, charity, and social justice. His encyclicals, such as Laudato Si on the environment and Fratelli Tutti on fraternity and social friendship, became touchstones for his efforts to drive global change. Pope Francis also made significant strides in interfaith dialogue, fostering greater understanding between the Catholic Church and other religious communities, particularly Judaism and Islam. His commitment to peace, tolerance, and the dignity of all people made him a prominent global figure, admired even by those outside of the Catholic faith. The news of Pope Francis's death reverberated worldwide, with leaders from all corners of the globe offering tributes. U.S. President Joe Biden, a devout Catholic, described Pope Francis as the People's Pope, acknowledging his tireless efforts to serve the poor, protect the environment, champion global and movement. Former U.S. President Barack Obama and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who had met with the Pope in the United States, also shared heartfelt messages celebrating his humility, moral leadership, and unwavering dedication to human dignity. Other figures, such as United States Vice President J.D. Vance, who met Pope Francis just days before his passing, expressed their admiration for his wisdom and guidance. International leaders from around the globe echoed similar sentiments, praising the Pope's compassion and his ability to unite people from diverse backgrounds.
Following his death, series of mourning known as the Novena began, lasting 9 days. During this time, the Catholic world will reflect on his life and contribution.
The College of Cardinals will soon begin the process of selecting a new pope, marking the start of an important transition within the Church. Pope Francis's death has left a profound void in both the Catholic Church and the global community. His unique leadership style, rooted in humility, compassion, and a desire for social change, will continue to inspire millions worldwide. His influence, both within the Church and on the world stage, is undeniable. As the Catholic Church prepares for a new pontiff, the legacy of Pope Francis will undoubtedly shape the future direction of the Church. ensuring that his vision for a more inclusive, just, and compassionate world lives on. The world mourns. Pope Francis, a beacon of hope and compassion, passed away on April 21, 2025. He was 88 years old. His health had been declining, but his spirit remained strong. He died in Vatican City, the heart of the Catholic Church. His passing marks the end of an era. Millions around the world grieve his loss. Cardinal Kevin Farrell shared the news. The world listened with heavy hearts. Church bells tolled a mournful sound. People gathered in St. Peter's Square seeking solace. Tears flowed freely. Flags flew at half-staff, a symbol of respect. The world remembers his warmth. His smile touched countless souls. His words brought comfort and guidance. Pope Francis's legacy of love and humility will endure. He leaves behind a church transformed, a world inspired. Jorge Mario Bergoglio, the future Pope Francis, began life humbly. He was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina in 1936. His parents, Italian immigrants, instilled in him strong values. He felt a call to the priesthood. He joined the Jesuit order, known for its scholarship and service. He rose through the ranks, becoming Archbishop of Buenos Aires. He was known for his simplicity and concern for the poor. In 2013, he was elected Pope. He chose the name Francis after Saint Francis of Assisi, the saint of the poor. It was a powerful statement. His election was historic. He was the first Latin American pope, a symbol of hope for the global South. He was also the first Jesuit pope, a sign of change and intellectual rigor. His papacy was marked by humility and a focus on the marginalized. Pope Francis lived simply. He rejected lavish apartments and chose to reside in a Vatican guest house. He often cooked his own meals. He rode in a simple car, not a limousine. He wanted to be close to the people. He broke down barriers. He embraced the poor and the sick. He washed the feet of prisoners, a powerful symbol of service. He called for action on climate change, a threat to the planet. He spoke out against injustice and inequality. His words resonated with people of all faiths. He had a special place in his heart for the marginalized. He welcomed refugees and migrants. He urged compassion for the LGBTQ+ community. He believed in a church that was open to all. Pope Francis made significant changes. He reformed Vatican finances, promoting transparency and accountability. He appointed more women to leadership roles in the church. He simplified the process for annulments, offering a path to healing for divorced Catholics. His reforms were bold and met with resistance from some. He challenged the church to confront its past mistakes. He apologized for the church's role in colonialism and its handling of sexual abuse scandals. He established a commission to protect minors. His actions, while not always sufficient, were a step towards healing. Pope Francis's funeral will be a global event. World leaders will gather to pay their respects. Millions will watch on television and online. The College of Cardinals will convene in Rome. They will elect a new pope to lead the church. The process will be filled with prayer and discernment. Pope Francis, the Pope of the poor, will be remembered for his humility, compassion, and unwavering commitment to justice. He challenged the church and the world to embrace a more loving and inclusive future. His legacy will continue to inspire generations to come.